Ken Pyle with VOD TV. We're at Parks Associates Connections Conference at CTIA. We're with Mark Walters of the Z-Wave Alliance. Mark, tell us a little bit about the Z-Wave Alliance.
All right, Ken. The Z-Wave Alliance is a consortium of about 200 companies that support the Z-Wave technology either with their products or their services. So the Alliance actually acts as the standards body for the technology, and we also do a lot of evangelizing of home control and Z-Wave technology and provide technical support to our members and advanced technical training. We hold marketing events all over the world, trade shows, conferences, again, Unplug Fests, things like this.
Well, and you were evangelizing a little bit yesterday, I suppose, and you were on a panel about home area networking and so forth. Why don't you kind of give us an overview of some of the takeaways from your perspective?
Yeah, that's right, Ken. I was on a panel yesterday that was talking about interoperability, and it was an interesting panel because we had some hardware manufacturers. We had Cisco, we had Hitachi, we had another alliance, the HomePlug Alliance. And we were really just trying to investigate and discover and talk about the value of interoperability. And Z-Wave's market differentiator is interoperability. We have over 800 products that are certified that are all interoperable with each other, by far, in a way, the largest ecosystem of interoperable products. And I think what was interesting to both the audience and some of the other panelists is that when we talk about interoperability, we're really talking about interchangeability. Mm-hmm. And we always tend to want to look at the value to the end consumer. But oftentimes in our world, it's the value to the service provider or whomever is providing the service. So in this particular instance, if I'm a service provider and I want to provide a thermostat to my customer, I want to select a technology that has interoperability, or rather has interchangeability, so that I have more than one source of supply. And so with Z-Wave, if you were going to offer a thermostat to your customer and you were a service provider, there are 48 different thermostats that are certified interoperable with Z-Wave technology, and you can pick and choose, mix and match to your heart's content. So there's a huge value, commercial value to you, both in terms of security and also in terms of purchasing choice and selection. Well,
and that's interesting. How did you guys come about with such an interoperable ecosystem, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. To some extent, we were charmed by our history. When Z-Wave first got started way back in 2001, it was really a product of one company. And so when you have one supplier and one company doing all of the work, you have interoperability. As it's grown over the years, we've adopted a philosophy that interoperability at the product level is really what's important to the consumer and really what's important in the long run, both in terms of providing security. If a company goes out of business, there's 6 or 7 more right behind it that can do the same thing. In terms of providing the consumer's choice and some pricing pressure, so it brings the prices of these products down into a little bit more of a realistic range, the ability to go to a product manufacturer and say to them, we would really like you to adopt Z-Wave technology. So let's say we go to the largest lighting control manufacturer in the world and we say, we'd really like you to adopt Z-Wave technology. And they say, well, we really have our own thing. Why should we do that? Mm-hmm. Well, you should do that because AT&T and Verizon and Vivint and 2GIG and on and on and on and on have supported the Z-Wave technology. And if you build a product that's Z-Wave interoperable, certified Z-Wave product, then you have access to that market channel. And it's turned out to be quite the success story for us because interoperability plays both up and down the supply chain.
Are there products or devices that you're seeing Z-Wave being integrated that kind of surprise you? You wouldn't have thought of necessarily 10 years ago or whenever it is you founded it?
Ken, I think it's kind of the opposite. Actually, I'd hate to say it. I'd love to say yes. Yeah. I've been a long time home automation hobbyist kind of guy, from way, way, way back. And when I think about, some of the devices that found their way into, say, like the X10 ecosystem from the 70s, right? Pet food feeders and automatic fish tank, things like this. We really haven't seen that proliferation of those devices yet in Z-Wave. I think most of the devices that we see in Z-Wave are pretty conventional, if you would think of it that way. Door locks, thermostats, lighting controls, all kinds of sensors and things like that. What I am finding very interesting is the applications that are being built around the devices. So the devices themselves may not be, kind of off the wall or interesting or unique yet, but what people are doing with them are. And I think the thing that's probably most exciting to me is how people are taking traditional or standard home automation components, lighting switches, thermostats, and things like this, and building applications around aging independently, around people that might need a little bit more assistance in their day-to-day living, and how we can take these relatively conventional kind of off-the-shelf devices and build applications that are highly specialized, highly valuable, and unique. That things that we didn't see. In the X10 era. In the X10 era, there weren't the proliferation of gateway devices. There wasn't a connection. There wasn't an internet to connect to, and the devices weren't always as reliable as they needed to be to build an application like helping somebody stay in their home longer. And today now we have connectivity through the internet. The devices are very, very reliable, and it really is quite possible now to take a number of sensors and some light switches and a thermostat and a door lock and put them in an elderly person's home and monitor them from 2,000 miles away and know every morning that things are normal. There's normal living pattern going on. The doors were opened at the right time, they were closed at the right time, they were locked at the right time, the temperature's appropriate, the refrigerator got opened. These kinds of things that seem fairly mundane but provide a huge level of security for somebody that's a caregiver. Whether they're a local caregiver or a remote caregiver, and for the person that's living in the home that may be needing a little assistance, they have the security of knowing that if I'm ill and I don't get out of bed, somebody's going to get an email or an SMS or a phone call, but they're not being watched on a day-to-day basis. So that application is what I think is new and neat and unique, and not necessarily the devices themselves.
One of the things you touched upon is the reliability, and it kind of leads to trust. If you're getting unreliable, the boy who cried wolf signal, hey, didn't your door's open, you find it isn't, then you kind of lose trust with the system and you don't use it, and adoption loses. So the reliability, how are you guys with the Z-Wave, ensuring that reliability?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of that is built into the technology itself. So Z-Wave uses what we call a mesh network technology. Every message is acknowledged. So if device A tries to communicate with device B, that's great. Unless device B actually communicates back to device A and say, yeah, I got it, device A assumes that message didn't get through. So it's what we call reliable communication. Everything's acknowledged. If for some reason a message doesn't get acknowledged, then the devices are set up, the technology is set up to retransmit that message multiple times, and even through multiple different paths of communication. So in a mesh network, you may have 3 or 4 or 5 different relay points in the network. So inherent in the Z-Wave technology is a lot of reliability. In addition to that, we are very careful to work with the best companies and the best brands in the world, and when somebody wants to use the Z-Wave technology and certify a product, we make sure that those products are to the best of our ability, built in a reliable nature. Obviously, some of this is up to the powers of the marketplace, right? But we do have pretty stringent standards in terms of how the technology is applied and how the technology is adopted, and pretty stringent certification process that ensures that the technology has been applied correctly. That doesn't necessarily mean their plastic isn't going to crack or something like this, but it does mean that at least from a communication standpoint, it's going to be reliable.
Well, it seems like it becomes something that it gets better and better over time as the cost of the devices come down, and as you can get more of the Z-Wave in the house, whether it being a light bulb or a switch or wherever, that mesh networks becomes that much stronger, it would seem.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's the wonderful thing about a RF mesh network is more is better, right? Yeah. So if you, in power line, for instance, the more devices you put on the power line, the worse the things get, right? And in a lot of RF technologies, the more devices you put in a given space, that you start running into problems with congestion and things like that. And the technology that Z-Wave uses, the RF mesh network technology, is just the opposite. More is better because you have more relay points, you have more redundant communication paths. And a perfect example of that is the Wynn Hotel here in Las Vegas. The Wynn Hotel has over 65,000 Z-Wave devices in it. Wow. And so that you can see that it can scale up quite largely. And then we also, have many homes out there that only have 2 or 3 devices in there. Mm-hmm. But we always love to tell everybody, and there is a technical substantiation to the point that the more is better. So if you have 4 devices in your house, go get 4 more. It's going to be even better. It's
kind of a different way to say Moore's law, I guess. So
exactly. Yeah. Well, again, it comes down to the strength of the mesh network and the number of different relay points and communication points that you have, and that provides some additional robustness to your whole system. So it's one of the few technologies out there where more is truly better. Yeah.
So Mark, I really appreciate your time and your insight here. Thank you.
All right, Ken, thank you very much. Appreciate it.